Hi everyone. In this video I'm just going to be going over a couple of the how some of the hardware works inside the pedal. It would help to have a bit of an understanding of how the hardware works if you're new to it. Might help you work out a problem if you have one, and make you conscious when you're wiring up the inside of the pedal that you're doing it the right way. I'm just going to be explaining how the DC jack and the mono and the stereo jacks work, and a bit of basic information about the 3-pole double throw switch. I'm not going to be going over how everything connects to each other, just how these components work mechanically. So the first one I'll explain is the DC jack. There are a few different types of DC jacks that you can use. This one's the machined type that's made of metal, and this one's a plastic one. If you use the metal type, you need to put a grommet on the outside of the pedal, because this, where the thread is actually the positive. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you would have heard me explain it. The whole outside of a pedal is grounded. So if you didn't shield with a grommet, if you didn't shield the metal part of the DC jack, you're just putting plus 9 volts to ground, which basically means that your power just goes straight to ground. So it's not going to work. You have to shield the outside of the metal jacks, the metal DC power jacks, with a grommet, like I've done with this one. This is an early build, and this DC jack is actually one that I removed from a pedal because they give me the irrits. They're far more trouble than they're worth. If you're ordering parts, just get the plastic jacks. They look neater. These ones also push out. Sometimes when you continually putting the DC jack in and out, it starts to push inwards, and then it doesn't make a contact properly. They're more trouble than they're worth. You can get a few different colours with the plastic jacks too. You can get, I've got white and black, and I'm not sure if I've actually seen any other colours, but yeah, you can get white and black. There's other types of DC jacks, but they're the main two that I use, or really only the main one. Also with the plastic type, you can get one that's called an external jack. External nut, and I'm trying to find one. Here we go. This is an external nut. You can see that there's, if I show you both here, see this one sits flush, whereas that one's the stopper's on the end, and whereas this one, the stopper's on the other end. So basically you put it through the back of the enclosure, and this nut actually sticks out. Probably thinking, what's the point in that? Why do I want to see the thread on the outside of the pedal? They've come in handy a few times when I've had really tight builds and I could not fit a normal style of DC jack in, so I use the external nut like that. And you get, see, the only thing that you have on the inside of the enclosure is pretty much just this little bit on the end, so they're good in that respect. Yeah, but these look a lot neater. I only use those if I absolutely have to. I'm not going to explain what the lugs on the metal type are. I've actually already explained that in another video, the how to wire up a DC jack video, so if you want to know, go check that out. But I'll just quickly explain for this one that this is ground. You can see that it goes to that little pin in the middle, and that is actually the pin on the inside. So ground is the pin, like I said before. The outside is 9 volts, and the pin is ground. So you can see that it connects. It's got that little round thing in the middle. It connects to the pin. So that's ground. And then these two are both 9 volt. That's the battery 9 volt, and that's your DC jack 9 volt. And it switches internally. So when there's nothing plugged in, it'll use this. It'll use the 9 volts the 9 volt battery that's connected to this lug. But when you plug it in, this one switches off, and you're now using the 9 volts from the wall wart. So it's if you imagine it just as like a switch that switches over when you plug the DC jack in, that's essentially what it is. And you can actually test that. I've got one probe of the multimeter connected to the helping hand so that the signal flows through, and then the other end is connected to the ground on the back of the jack. And then if I touch the pin on the inside, make sure I'm actually doing that right, you can hear that makes the beat. So if I did the same and put the alligator clip on the helping hands to the two outer lugs, and touched you can see there's a little metal tab on the outside, not the pin, the one below it, the tab. That's essentially the equivalent of with the metal jack, the entire outside of the thread. Like I was saying before, how it can't touch the enclosure. That's what that little tab is on the inside. So if you touch the tab with one probe and touch the other two lugs, you'll get a signal, which means that they're connected. So that's basically how the DC jack works. It's just basically a switch that switches between the battery and the power from the wall wart when you plug it in. That's essentially how it works. So next thing we'll look at is the mono jack. It's pretty straightforward. When you plug a guitar cable in, you can see that this connector is touching the tip, and this shield is actually touching the ring on the inside. You can see that ring there. So there's a connection between the ring on the jack and the shield, and this connector and the tip. So there's two separate connections going on. You can check which one's which by using the multimeter, and if we put one probe on the that connector and the other one on here, you can see that it's connected to that lug. If I touch the other lug, nothing happens. So the entire shaft, the ring, and the little tab on the inside of the ring is all one piece. So for instance, if we had one jack on each end and we put a probe on one shield lug and a probe on the other, it's connected. So basically what that means is the shield of this cable, guitar cable, is connected to the shield of this guitar cable, and that's ground. You'll also see that if I put the probe on the connector, or whatever it's called, the tip connector, let's call it that, and the other tip connector, we've got a connection too. So basically these two jacks are connecting both tips together and both shields together, because obviously you want the tip, which carries the signal, to go through. Pretend this is the guitar cable going into the amplifier. You want the tip to connect to the other side tip. So on your amp, you've probably got a similar jack like that on your amp, and it's the same thing again on the amp side. So that's the mono. I hope I explained that clearly enough. With the stereo jack's got a special function. The only time you're going to need them is if you want to. There's a few reasons to use them, but the main one for pedals is if you want to disconnect the battery when you pull out the guitar cable. Basically, how that works is when you've got you'll have the negative of your battery connected to the ring lug, and you'll have ground connected to this lug, which actually goes through your case. Sorry, the enclosure. So now if we test it now, there's actually a connection between those two. If I actually pull that cable out and test it now, there's no connection between the two. So you break the ground on the battery snap. You pretty much, if you just imagine that when you pull your guitar cable out, someone just sent me an email. When you pull your guitar cable out, like you imagine that's the side of your pedal. When you're pulling that guitar cable out, all you're doing is severing the ground on the battery snap, and by severing the ground on the battery snap, you're switching the battery off. There's no power. There's going to be no power going to your circuit. So again, it's basically just like a switch. When it's in like that, the battery's on. When you pull it out, the battery's off, and that's because you're breaking the connection between the ring and the shield lugs. And again, if you want to check to make sure that you're wiring onto the right one, like which one of these is the ring, which one's the shield, which one's the tip, just use your multimeter, attach one probe to one, and then just check until it beeps, and you'll work out which one it is. You can pretty much go off by, if you look at the side, it's like a sandwich. I think I said this in one of my other videos. It's like a sandwich, and you can just follow, like if I want to work out what that one is there, I just follow that around until I find which one it's connected to. You can see across there, it's just like a piece of metal connected in one slice. So this one is actually the tip. So that's pretty straightforward, and the ring, just like the mono, the ring's connected directly to it, so that's easy to work out as well. I didn't want to go into a hell of a lot of detail with this with the 3-pole double throw switch. It's probably the thing that most people want to know how it works, but it's probably a bit too complicated for me to explain in this video for what I understand that it does anyway. So just a basic explanation. When you've got your guitar cable, you've got to pretend that the guitar's plugged in. When it's in bypass, the signal from the tip goes through the 3-pole double throw and goes straight out at the circuit, which would be up here, is disconnected. It's disconnected because through the switch. But when you hit it, it redirects the signal from the input of this jack. It redirects it through the circuit and out through the output. So it's a switch again that does something like that. But you've also got the LED, and the LED is a bit like the battery ground that I just explained before with the stereo jack. When you hit the button, it severs the ground from the LED, so it switches off when the effect isn't engaged. When you hit it, it joins the ground, and then the light comes on. So that's how you know when your effect is on and off, obviously from the LED on the front. So that's you have to go and have a look at the wiring diagram and what I've just said and check it out. And you don't have to understand this stuff to make it. I didn't understand any of this stuff for like the first 15 pedals that I built. I just blindly wired them up, and everything was okay. Helps if you do understand, and also helps if you have someone attempt to explain it to you like I am right now. But you don't have to. You don't have to know any of this stuff, and it'll just come with you in time anyway. Like it has for me. It's just once you keep doing them, yeah, you pick up how they work. Also, just one last thing with this, with the 3-pole double throw switch, make sure that when you wire it up like this and not like this. It's a mistake that people new to the hobby do. That's the incorrect wiring in that way. And also another thing too, if you want to work out how the actual mechanism works, put one probe on one lug. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this with 2 hands, but let's have a shot at it. Put one probe on one lug and put the other one on the other. You can see that there's a connection between those two, and there'll be a connection between those two, and there'll be a connection between those two. But there won't be a connection between the middle lug, and the bottom one. See, it's not making any noise until I hit the switch. Now there is. So if you think of these 3 rows, 3 vertical rows as just being a switch, the top 2 are connected at the moment. Sorry, all 3 rows across the top are connected. You hit the switch, and then the 2 bottom rows are connected, and that's all that switch is doing. It's just swapping it from the top 6, hit the button, bottom 6. It's like 3 single pole double throw switches in the one switch. That's mechanically that's all it is. I hope that I explained that of a decent fashion. It probably sounds more complicated than it actually is, but at least that might give you something to go on to get started and help you fault find if you have any issues when you're wiring it up. I find it's handy to know these things when you're working on this stuff. But yeah, like I said, it comes with time, so don't worry too much if you don't understand the wiring. If you're interested in building guitar pedals, check out my channel. I have a series of guitar pedals stepping you through the process. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.